Kevin's Trooper channel. This is the channel where we do all types of DIY projects for overlanding and off-roading. We're in the garage today preparing to begin our rear bumper build on the Trooper. So what I wanted to do today is I wanted to practice some welds, and we're going to do some cutting and etching to see whether my welds are getting adequate penetration or not. We'll try some stick, we'll try some MIG, and the best way to tell if your welds are worth doing is that you can take some acid and put on the weld after you slice it in half, and you'll be able to see how much penetration that weld actually got into the metal. There's nothing better you can do to tell if your welds are actually worthwhile than to cut and etch. So I have two projects coming up on the Trooper. We're going to build the rear bumper from scratch with plate steel, no kit or anything. We're going to do it out of cardboard, and then we're going to cut out the plates and weld it up. That's coming up soon on the channel. But you know, there's something else that's kind of been in the back of my mind that I really think needs to happen as well. Knowing what I know about welding now, compared to what I knew about welding when I built that front bumper, I'm just not real confident that those welds on that front bumper are sufficient. What I really think I should do is I think I need to pull that front bumper back off of the Trooper and weld up those welds again. I think I need to go over them a couple of times, put some good fillet welds in there with maybe some 60-10 stick, and go over it with some 70-18s, where I know that front bumper is not going to come apart. I may have gotten it welded good, but I know way more about welding now than I did then, and I've got one heck of a welder now compared to the little 110 Lincoln flux core I had at that time. I'm just not sure I got good enough penetration on some of those welds. So we have a project coming up on the channel as well where we're going to take the front bumper off, we'll set the winch to the side, and then we're going to re-weld all of the welds on the inside. So let's get these coupons cut out with the plasma cutter, and then we're going to do some cutting and etching and look at our welds and see if they're worthwhile. Coming up. Okay, I've got my coupons made up, and now we're going to start to do some welding. The first thing I'm going to start with is I'm going to start with a Lincoln Electric 6011. This is a 1/8 inch electrode. Now, a very good way that you can determine your starting point on your voltage is you take a 1/8 inch rod. In decimals, that's 0.125. So you start with 125 amps whenever you're welding flat. Let's see how it turns out. Come on! All right. All right, let's try a 1/8 inch 70-18. Now, if you guys will look close right here, I'm getting a little bit out of position towards the end, which is not a good thing to be doing. So this is 2 fillet welds with a 6011 1/8 inch root and a 70-18 cap. We're going to cut it and we're going to etch it and see what kind of penetration we got. You can see, looking at this cut and etch joint right here, where the base metal fused to the root weld very well, and then the cap tied it all together really nicely. Beautiful weld there. You could not ask for better penetration out of the 6011 or the 7018. Super proud of that joint and that cutting etch job right there. So this is my cut and etch from the MIG, and you can see on this side right here I did not have it turned up high enough. And then you can see right here where, as I turned the machine up, you can see that I got better penetration, but that is adequate penetration on a fillet weld. There's fusion into the base metal, so that's still a very good weld. So if you guys are watching this and you're thinking about getting into welding, first of all, I would highly recommend that you do so. Welding is a great ability to have. And you know, whether you've ever picked up a welder before or not, it is something that anyone can learn. With enough time and effort and practice, and you know, there's great YouTube videos out there. WeldingTipsandTricks.com is a great channel that can teach you welding, and several other ones as well. Chucky 2009 is another one. In his earlier videos, he had some welding educational videos that really taught me a tremendous amount. And it's not that expensive. I would recommend, if you're deciding to start getting into welding, get you a simple stick welder. And I know most people's first instinct is to go get the MIG because it's easy. If you learn to stick weld, you're gonna pick up all of the details about welding that you need to know, so that when later on you do get a MIG gun, it's real simple to pick up, and you know all of the little ins and outs of what the bead looks like and all about the parameters of welding that you need to know. And the other neat thing about a stick welder is you can weld so many different metals and different thicknesses, all by selecting a different rod. You know, they have rods for stainless, they have rods for all kinds of different metals out there. And so stick welding is where I would begin. Get you a little inexpensive stick welder and start stick welding. And then later on, when you decide to step up to a MIG, it'll be a breeze. This is the bead that I laid down with the 6010 electrode. And for those of you that don't know, a 6010 does not make a pretty welding bead, but it digs in, it penetrates. It works really good as your first weld to stick the two pieces together, and then you can go over the top of that with something like a 7018 in order to kind of secure that a little bit better and smooth that weld out. The reason the bead looks like this as opposed to a smoother weld is because this is a fast freeze puddle. So every time that puddle makes one little ripple, it freezes immediately. And that's why your 6010 does not make as pretty of a weld as what a 7018 does. But 6010 works really well if you have dirty metal. You can see how this is kind of a rusted piece. Also, if you have to weld through paint, now it's better to clean your metal, but 6010 works really good if you have to stick two pieces of metal together that aren't perfect. Whenever I go to weld up the bumper, the front bumper, I'm going to start with 6010, and then I'm going to pass over the top of that with some 7018, which is what I'm going to do on this right now. So I'm going to put 7018 passes over the top of this, and then we're going to cut and etch this and see what this big piece of 1/2 inch looks like. I'm excited. Let's get started. Alright, let's put another one in. I'm just doing small circular E's. By the way, guys, chipping hammers are not meant to bang with. They're meant to scrape with, okay? You don't have to beat the heck out of your weld if you do it properly. The slag should come right off like that. Now you notice how flat that weld is? Just the slightest amount of undercut at the top. And I think I'm getting that because I'm not holding my rod at exactly 45. I'm going down just a little too much, I believe. All right, let's cut and etch this big 1/2 inch and see how we did on this thing. And let's see if we can bring the welds out on this thing. Using Loctite's naval jelly. This will acid etch the different metals. And we should be able to bring our welds out. If we get the light just right, you can see the welds. You can see we have a little piece of partial non-fusion here. And you see the other welds went very well. This was the 6010 capped with 7018s. This was just the 67018s. That's the benefit of your 6010 right there. Well, that's going to do it for me this weekend, guys. I think I've wasted enough metal for this weekend. I want to encourage all of you out there to get out and learn to weld. It's not that expensive, and with a little bit of time and effort, you can learn to stick two pieces of metal efficiently where they will hold. If your off-road truck breaks, you can weld it yourself. And also, I want you guys to know, this is just practice to begin my rear bumper build, which hopefully is going to be coming up in the next week or two. Thank you so much for joining me. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and join our great community that we have here on this channel. And a